schools increasing the number of places they offer in response to parental preference. So the council had no grounds to object to this decision. I can also confirm that there's no presumption that Wokingham Borough will invest to enable the current students to progress into a sixth form on the site. My understanding is the school has a funding agreement with the Department for Education as an 11 to 16 school. The expansion issue will be addressed at a later date, taking account of the council's resources, the priorities at that point, and the school's ambitions and other potential funding sources. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, Mark, I ceased to have responsibility 2 years ago. We originally planned for an additional wing to be built at Bowhunt in the event that there was a large increase in pupil numbers living locally, as included in the local plan, which is far from the case now or in the medium term. Can you tell me what an unfunded cost would be for WBC to build the extra wing onto Bowhunt if it were to be built in the next couple of years? Is it somewhere between 5 and 10 million, as my construction industry contacts tell me?
Thank you very much. Mark, can you say that?
I think your construction industry contacts are probably correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. David Chop. Is Chop in here?
Up there. Just fill it
Yeah.
in first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've missed this note now, haven't I?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that there are concerns that a large number of mature trees have been felled in Elms Field. But to the best of my knowledge, I know that many of those trees are unsuitable for a number of reasons, and that for every tree felled there, it will be replaced by 25% more in semi-mature trees. That's the reason trees have been taken down. So my question is, across this borough, just how many new trees are being planted to ensure that our residents will continue to believe that Wokingham is not only the happiest place in the country, but one of the best places to live?
Thank you very much. Yes, David, you
Thank you very much. I must just tell you that it was trees that actually got me first involved with being a councillor. I was really annoyed at the trees being cut down when we were building all the back gardens. We were chopping trees down everywhere. We were congesting the roads. There were no new roads, etc. And just to answer the question direct, I could read out a boring answer, but let me just tell you that with the 9 signs, country parks that we've built, we have planted in the last 7 years 30,000 trees. What is not included in that figure is the one that I would suggest was my happiest and most pleasing project when, as leader, I arranged to have a joint venture with Barbara Stables and the Wokingham Veterans Tree Society. And we funded 60 semi-mature oak trees which were planted all around the borough. I know that Angus planted one, many other people planted them. So we have not taken lightly removal of trees. But unfortunately, when you are actually building something and a tree has to be changed, taken down, we have to do that. But we, as has been said earlier on, we replace trees. 30,000 and 60 of those were to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee, 60 years old. So I don't know if you've got a supplementary, but I don't see that that's a bad record that this council has achieved.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like a short supplementary. So following on from your answer, should we apologise for removing some trees to be replaced, or should we be proud of our record in respect of trees?
Well, it's a bit difficult to answer that because removal of any ancient tree is not taken lightly. So yes, I am sorry that we see the loss of those trees, but I'm also delighted that as the council we are committed to replacing them more than one for one.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Chopping.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should like to ask the Executive Member for Strategic Highways and Planning the question standing in my name.
Thank you very much for the question. The Council's policy for affordable housing on new developments is set out in policy CP5 of the core strategy. So if you have nothing to do tonight when you go to bed, you can read that and you'll see exactly what that is. But this requires all sites over 5 homes to provide a percentage of homes as affordable housing. The percentage varies depending on the size, etc., but it is around 35%. And I would just like to point out that before we had the current policy, which we're operating on, you had to build 15 houses or more to provide an affordable house. And the amazing thing, and I could never understand it, but developers always seem to focus on a figure of 14. So I think we've got a pretty good result here. This council has an excellent record of securing these affordable homes, with only a handful of viability cases being accepted. And that is where the developer says, I can't possibly afford to provide any affordable homes. So 35% has been secured on all of the SDLs through a mix of on-site provision and commuted zones. And as a result, you've heard earlier on that we are on a target to build some 500 affordable houses this year, of which 120 will have been provided by our own housing company. And of this 120, I'm delighted that our new extra care unit in Woodley, by the way, Woodley never get anything, I believe, will provide 34 brilliant homes for our vulnerable, and our new halfway house for young people leaving care.
Thank you very much. Go to supplementary.
Yes, it's in relation to the provision of the land itself. On behalf of the housing companies, can I ask, please, can we have some more land?
Yes.
Councillor Lindsay Ferris.
Thank you. I have been receiving an increasing number of complaints regarding the lack of parking facilities for businesses in areas with residence parking permits. This is having an impact on both local businesses and others. Several have received parking tickets and many residents are having problems finding spaces for someone like a plumber, builder, cleaner or other to park. I made a suggestion about a year ago where Woking Borough Council could provide business parking permits, one that allows a local business to park in these areas but restricted to Monday to Friday 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with an appropriate annual charge. Can the executive member responsible please advise what action is being taken to assist these businesses?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. It's very interesting that the number of complaints around roads with resident parking permits has increased recently, especially along the same lines as you've been talking about. Raises the question, which I've raised before, is why is this happening? Absolutely nothing has changed. No new residence bays have been created. No non-residence bays have been removed. So why the increased complaints? I can only assume this is because the complainants are now being caught ignoring the parking restrictions. As I've already announced in a previous answer, we'll be carrying out a root and branch review of the current residence parking permit scheme, but it's highly unlikely that there will be change to allow additional drivers to park in a residence bay. The issuing of residence parking permits is extremely tightly controlled and restricted to residents who do not have or have extremely limited off-street parking with their properties. Almost every road with residence parking bays have significantly more permits issued than spaces available. So those residents must be the priority for those spaces. Our neighbour, Reading Borough Council, has such a scheme as you proposed, which they charge up to £330 per permit. So it could be a money owner. In Reading, they have parking permit zones, about 6 of them, rather than individual roads, which we have. Which means a permit holder has the option of parking at over 500 different bays in each of those 6 zones. We only have 341 spaces in total across the whole borough. We already have an option which businesses could use to satisfy your requirement. It's called a car park season ticket, which we could look at special rates if the businesses wanted to contact us.
Thank you very much. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I think there's lots of small businesses in this area who will not be very happy with an answer like that, because it's people who visit for a short period of time I was talking about. However, I will move on, and that is that I registered 14 roads in Twyford which were having issues. In fact, I raised the issue about the introduction of civil parking with the officers 12 months ago before it was introduced. We have commuter parking problems in Twyford. The cars that do park there are not parking in illegal places, but they are causing major problems. Can I ask what action the executive member is doing for areas which are located around our railway stations and in Twyford in particular? Thank you.
Certainly I will, although it's nothing to do with residence parking permits or the business parking permits. But I will answer it. The enforcement agency is going out there already ticketing people, which is why we're getting a lot more complaints. That activity will continue. There is an option for the local parish council or any town council, if they wish to, fund additional activity which would obviously be focused by them if they pay for it.
Thank you very much. I think we've only got about 3 minutes left, so we're going to be very brief now. So it's nice to firm with brief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be very brief. My question is to the Executive Member for Highways and Transport. Following the upgrade of street lighting in the borough, can the Executive Member give me an update including savings made? Thank you.
It will be a brief answer. The target end date for the street lighting upgrade project is not until the 31st of March this year. So officers do not have the accurate position of the outturn of completed and outstanding units. And until the contractor has submitted his completions list, which will happen in the first week of April, we won't know. So once the final position is known, officers will provide a full status update for all councillors in response to this question.
Thank you very much. Have a supplementary, Mike?
No view of that, but I'll wait the update. Thank you.
Sorry?
I'll wait for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the same way that we extended the public question time, we've got only a couple of questions left. Can we extend the member question time? I think it's 4 to 10:08, just to allow those 2 questions to get in. Thank you.
So is every Fine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My question is to David. Is the Council aware of any proposals for potential housing or other developments south of the M4 near Cutbush Lane and Lower Early Way? Recently, engineers have been taking core samples in university-owned field, which suggest possible development that would seriously impact the residents of Hawking Ward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we are updating our local plan, Clive, which I think you know, many sites have been promoted, 283 exactly, some of which meet this general description and can be found, sorry, is that better? Some of which can be found on our website in the document or interactive map below. And that's a heading, suggested sites for development, interactive map of suggested developments. We have a number of formal applications in Chinfield which are on university land. These are in the public arena and are reported to the relevant lead members through normal governance arrangements.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you very much. I have looked at the local plan map, David, and the area that I'm talking about is not included on there. So maybe you could have a chat with your friends at Reading University and see if they are planning on putting some houses there in the next few years.
I think if somebody owns a field, they can do what they like on the field as long as they don't build a house without permission.
Thank you very much. Right. Imogen? Okay.
Could I ask a question standing on Monday, please?
Yeah, that is David.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. I find this a bit amazing, to tell you the truth, because in the in our Borough News we discussed this. Regular updates on major projects are provided at each of the community forums, along with updates from the Council's website and to lead members, and to the Strategic Highway Board on which Rochelle Shepherd-Debay sits. So I'm amazed that you think the information isn't actually being provided. The information typically provided includes the project programme for all major infrastructures, including road schemes, along with an update on the project status, and an identified completion date. For highways, the Council is now within a SCAPE contract to build all of these major road schemes and bridges. This information has been made available through the above media, as well as in the media releases through newspapers, social media, including the Council's website, directly related to requested traffic calming features along Old Forest Road. A series of workshops and meetings has been attended by local members, councillors and local residents, with any number of emails flying back and forth about it, so I think you all know that. The Council is committed to delivering the major road schemes, which is supported by the recent planning approvals and project progressions associated with the Arborfield Cross Relief Road, South Wokingham Eastern Gateway, results on the ground at Station Approach, Shinfield East, Montague Park, and in parts of North Wokingham are already finished and open. The major projects being delivered are significant and challenging, and therefore real-time progress is not very practical. However, it is considered that through the outlets mentioned above, the information, and especially through Rochelle, who you know, is already available.
Do you have a subject?
Yes, I do. This is not about a question about what Rochelle does. This is what information is publicly available. Why is there not information on the website where people can look up what particular things are doing?
Thank you.
Well, as far as I know, we deliver this to each house. And as far as I know, we took a double-page spread, I think, in the Wokingham paper. We do everything else, unless you want me to physically go around the 62,000 units that exist in this borough. I don't know what else we can do.
And you couldn't get it right either.
Sorry, may I invite the comment that has been made to actually put that as a question, which I will take. When you infer that, you're inferring I have done something wrong.
Not you personally, but there's...
Well, sorry, don't keep saying that. I get fed up with people saying that. And when I challenge them, they say, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about somebody else in general. You have had your chance.
You pointed to the borough document.
Thank you. Imogen, please withdraw that statement.
I was explaining that I was referring to the Wokingham Borough Council document that was just sent out. There is inaccuracies in that document regarding the roads, because it talks about the planning application of a particular road having been approved already when it has not.
Okay.
And that's what I was talking about.
Just a brief reply, David, and then we must...
The brief reply is that the planning application was submitted on Friday the 16th. It did not say the planning had been approved.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, members, that's the end of questions. We're back to item 84, which is changes to the Constitution. So we're going backwards in time now, back to changes to the Constitution, and we need a proposer for the changes to the Constitution. Page 57 on the agenda. Paul. Paul, do we have a second? Would you like to speak down? Proposer?
Mr. Mayor, members, as I have said very many times before, it's always with reluctance that I move an amendment to the Constitution. And I do so because the Constitution should be something stable that the Council can rely on and is not tinkered with all the time. However, as the Council also knows, I think I've stood up here in nearly every Council meeting I've been Chair of the Constitutional Review Committee to move a motion. Well, I can promise members that this will be the last time I move a motion on the Constitution, as this is my last Council meeting. Since being elected 15 years ago, I have the privilege of sitting on such illustrious committees as Audit and Constitutional Review, and I'm sure some other members will take on these glory committees. Moving to the amendment in hand, I am pleased that this amendment features a change to the rules around petitions, which allow members of the public to make a greater contribution to this meeting. And I commend that to this Council. The other amendments are the usual tidying and housekeeping exercises that come at pretty much every Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We missed the seconder. Who was? James Hawley. Okay, do you wish to speak now, Pauline, or reserve?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor, very briefly. I just want to emphasise the importance of the first of these changes. We all remember how difficult it was at the previous council meeting, and when the petitioner had to be cut off midstream. And while the Mayor was absolutely correct in doing this, we were embarrassed, and the petitioner was upset because he was talking about something that was really important to him, but there was nothing else to be done because of the way the Constitution was written. This should rectify that situation, and I thank the Mayor personally and others for initiating this change, which I think will be of benefit to the residents and the public who present petitions to us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that, for the compliment. I too was keen on that, I have to say. Are there any other members who would like to speak on this item? There being none, can we then go to the vote? Those in favour of the constitutional changes as proposed, look to be unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Annual report for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Do we have a proposer? We have a proposer in Laura, and do you have a seconder? Lindsay? Okay, would you like to speak now, Laura?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had a jam-packed year for Overview and Scrutiny, so I'm thrilled to present the annual Overview and Scrutiny Management Report and the reports of the 3 Overview and Scrutiny committees. That is a tongue twister, I assure you. I know that you've all devoured the reports, but nevertheless, I would like to highlight a few things that we've got to look forward to in the next council year. So, as we all know, Overview and Scrutiny is all about getting this council to deliver for residents, to continuously improve and to face up to its biggest challenges. So essentially, Overview and Scrutiny is here to get this council to up its game. And the way that we're going to try to do that more is focus increasingly on pre-decision scrutiny. So that will include horizon scanning for potential issues and big projects. That means we're going to be working closer with the executive, engaging more research, listening more to our residents. Because the focus has been quite a lot at the moment on post-decision scrutiny, so always like looking in the rearview mirror, and that's got its place, that's got its merits, but we need to be more constructive in making recommendations before the decisions go through. Over the last year, we've invited the lead of the council and executive members to the ONS Management Committee. I know that no one enjoys a grilling, but I hope that you've appreciated that it's been so important in really scrutinising your decisions, your process for reaching them, your planning, and your communicating them to residents. So you can look forward to getting invitations in your inboxes for the next year. The 21st Century Council Programme is deeply embedded in the ONS Management Committee agenda. We're looking at it again on Tuesday, and so we'll be very much focused for next year as well. Crucially, we'll be very much making sure that we've got union representation at those meetings, because it is so vital to have this council staff's voice inputting into the process. I think we can all agree on that. And then finally, a number of members of this committee gave evidence to the Communities and Local Government Select Committee into their inquiry into Overview and Scrutiny. And we really quite like their recommendations, and they included organisational culture and access to information, so we're really going to try to embed that into the ONS function this year. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Councillors Ferris and Richards for going up to Westminster to take part in that inquiry. So I hope you've been enthused by these reports. I hope you can see that Overview and Scrutiny has energy, that it has teeth. It's had a good year, and we're going to have an ambitious one ahead of us. So ONS really is a critical friend, and we're really dedicated to getting it to get this council up its game. So I'd like to recommend that this report is noted.
I must congratulate you, Laura, on that speech, and thank you. Seconder, we have. Firstly, now,
I'm happy to speak.
Happy to speak.
I'm very pleased to second this particular area. The movement forward this year on Overview and Scrutiny under both chairmen has been quite noticeable. It was also very interesting to go to the House of Commons to listen to the Select Committee and the debates, and what was common was that every single area all had the same view, that there wasn't something quite right with how they were doing Overview and Scrutiny, and it needed to be improved. And I think there's been some clear action that we're now moving forward. Laura mentioned looking at pre-stages when things are in the development stage, whereas previously we tended to look at things when it had gone wrong, which still has a role, but I think that's not the main role. And we have the opportunity now, as it's coming round to the annual review, that we look at issues to be looked at by Overview and Scrutiny. I would certainly think that highways and planning are two areas that we should have some look at, because I think we have issues, but I think we have an opportunity to move forward in those areas too. So I'm very happy to support this, and I think it's one of those areas that I think is going well, and it's moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members who wish to speak? Mr. Baker, please remain. Mr. Ross. That's it, I think. Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During my tenure as leader, one of my objectives, which I failed to achieve, was to actually shift the scrutiny from looking backwards, but to be more proactive and looking forward. When I was asked, having moved on from being leader, by the current leader, Charlotte, to take on the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee, I felt my chance, my opportunity was to implement what I was trying to do was absolutely right. So the brief tenure I had as the management, I not only brought in this drive to look about what we were going to do, but I also invited the Leader of the Opposition to sit with me when I and the officer and the Deputy Chairman were setting the agenda, to try and make it truly apolitical, because I think it's absolutely critical and key that scrutiny is not political. So when I hear Charlotte saying that that approach is going to be continued under the new Chairman, Councillor Kaiser, I'm feeling very, very pleased, because it could very easily have been put to one side. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. We have one other speaker, I think. Angus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I very much support this report. I just wanted to, as there is this very good move towards looking forward rather than looking back, in the forward it says about monitoring decisions made by other public service providers, such as the NHS and the police. As two of our blue light services, I do hope that attention will be paid to the third one, the fire service, especially at this time for the community, with the impacts of Grenfell, some rebuilding of fire stations, and the impact of the FBU action whilst aid is in dispute to not provide co-responding working. I just put that as a thought for the next coming year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Pauline, you are Sigmund.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a few comments on section 4 of this agenda item, the report of the Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, because I want to draw your attention to two really successful innovations this year. Following a recommendation from the Coombs School Task and Finish Group, the committee has now established a standing Part 2, and this is to review any schools that are beginning to cause concern, and it invites local ward members to come and attend and take part in the discussions and find out what's been going on. Not all local members come, although if they do, there's an opportunity to ask what the department is doing to help those schools. But even if they don't come, they are now at least aware of where the problems might be developing. That was not the case with the Coombs School, and it took the local member by complete surprise when it happened. So now we hope that members are warned in advance. Another innovation is the introduction of regular updates by the Executive Member for Children's Services. The committee receives and considers information on the development of new and existing policies and is able to have an input in the early stages of policy development. One successful result of this has been the implementation of the policy to exempt foster carers and care leavers up to the age of 21 from council tax, and we'll be looking at how we can continue this up to the age of 25 at a future meeting. All members of this committee and their substitutes attend training at the start of the first meeting of each year, because children's services is an area that's constantly changing, and we're keen to keep up to date with new legislation and service developments. This, I feel, is vital, and there will be a similar session this year with some significant changes already on the agenda, such as another change yet again to Ofsted. This committee has a wonderful team who've built up a huge fund of knowledge that enables them to ask relevant questions and examine issues in depth. And I feel it's really important to have continuity of membership on this committee. And I'd personally like to thank them all for their work. The report here under section 4 outlines some of the many things that we've achieved during the year.
Thank you very much. Very interesting report. If there being no other speakers, Laura, you have a right to reply.
Thank you, and thank you for your suggestions for other areas of focus that will be taken on board.
Okay, so can we put the proposals on pages 125 to 150? Vote in favour, please, show. That's unanimous. Well done. Thank you very much. Audit Committee annual report. Do we have a proposer? We do. Mr. Anthony Pollard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is my first.
Can we have a seconder, Anthony? I'm sorry.
My vice chairman is my seconder. This is my first report to council. The highlights, I suppose, of the year. We obviously do a lot of work in connection with internal audit. The issues around housing revenue accounts, I think, are specific and are specifically identified here, and are obviously of concern to all of us, I would expect. And it is something that we will continue to monitor and ensure that the recommendations are implemented next year. Also, I had a meeting with a consultant who was doing some work in connection with reviewing our internal audit service, and I found it particularly interesting talking with him and getting some ideas as to how we might improve what we do in future. The risk management piece is something that I think has taken a high profile in the council over the last few years and often shapes the way we spend money, the way we make choices. Some of that's a good thing. I remember there was a period where we spent 6 million a year, David will remember that, on highway maintenance. And then some silly idiot went into the side of the bridge in Shepherd's Hill, nearly knocked it into the Great Western Main Line, and we ended up having to divert about £4 million to bridge repairs and bridge maintenance in Woodley, because a lot of bridges were actually unsafe. So you see how risk management actually affects how we spend money and how we can choose to spend money. And a couple of items that came out under that, which again have come out from the discussions with the consultant. Next year I want us to particularly look at the financial aspects of the town centre. I think I'm particularly interested in the new businesses that want to come to the town, the rent roll, the council tax and business rates that we're going to get. My colleagues will recognise on this side my interest in the financial aspects of the project. And I think it's an opportunity to get the skin of that from a financial perspective. And also, for the rest of the council, probably the most important project that we have undergoing at the moment. And I think those two will take some time next year as the audit committee to just get under the skin of those and give them a good financial going over. The statement of accounts is to most people quite boring, but actually is important. Again, the issue that I have noticed over many years is the pension deficits, which we have to keep an eye on, because they have a habit of ensuring or requiring us to spend not only ourselves but our staff more money being put into the pension funds. And that has an impact again on the resources that we have and where we spend it, what we might not spend. Corporate governance continues to be a major issue. Treasury management, one of my favourite subjects when we are managing something like £60 million worth of cash. We often get money from government for projects before we have to spend it, so we've got opportunities to make some extra money, which goes down well with keeping our reserves on track. And the data protection, obviously, you all know this is coming in May, new features, and it's important that we are on top of that and we don't get caught out. So from my perspective, I recommend this report, and I believe David has a few other other items to contribute. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We have a second. You wish to speak now or after?
If I may.
You may.
Because
You may.
what I say follows on from what Anthony has said. He's done the technical side, and I agree with everything that he said there. There is a lot of detail which we have to go into, and a lot of things that we have to take note of. But whenever anybody mentions audit committee and reports, most members' eyes actually glaze over. I suppose it's the 10 to 25 millimetre thick reports, this is a thin one, that go to each committee meeting using lots of long words and dozens of pages of language that have that effect. Oh, it's interesting. I thought so at the beginning, and it took a full season to realise that we carry out one of those essential functions of any business of checking what happens to the money. We don't go into all the petty cash receipts, but rather look at the high-level numbers, how the data is collected, and how it is checked. Really, we check how responsibly the actual money is handled. You have already agreed capital and revenue strategies which come through our scrutiny. And incidentally, did you know that council rules preclude a member of audit from sitting on any other scrutiny committee, so that must be some form of prize. There are a number of legal procedures that have to be followed. And in this we're guided by our auditors, who are presently Ernst & Young, with 2 representatives at each of our meetings. And in our December meeting, we also had 9 senior council officers present to monitor our actions, legally and financially, explain sections and account for actions taken by them and their colleagues. This is therefore a serious and complex committee. Fortunately, of the pages we're given, most are a repeat explanation of last year, and we have a pre-briefing to explain any changes in relation to that previous year, or what it was that we expected to see. Incidentally, you're all welcome to attend, and you're all invited. There are all the usual provisions for public and members' questions submitted in advance. Perhaps if you did, we would get allocated a more appropriate route for the numbers. X2 can be claustrophobic, with 16 people sitting around a table designed for less than a dozen. Incidentally, as Prue and I can confirm, there is no such thing as a silly question. These accountants and auditors can confuse with terminology, can't they, Prue? And so it can be fun getting them to reduce terminology to normal English language. In seconding the proposition, I can assure you that we have been diligent to the best of our ability, and ask you to join with us in approving the motion to note the report. Thank you all. And we do look forward to seeing you.
Right. Are there any other speakers on this item? There not being any, so we have a proposal by Anthony Pollard. It's been seconded. Those in favour, please. And any against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Members. 90 young next, thank you all to come. Standards Committee annual reports. I believe this is Unicorn Clark, am I right? Yes. Oh yeah. Do you have a second here, Carmen?
I do have a seconder.
Mr. Marlow. Okay, would you like to speak then?
Is it my microphone or is it yours, maybe? No,
it's not mine.
It's not yours. Okay, it's mine.
Would you like to use a different one? Snuggle up with Philip, you know.
I'll come up and sit next to you, shall I?
Simple as that.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I'm quite sure that everyone has read the report, so I will do my best to make my comments as precise as possible.
Okay.
Quite simply, the committee's raison d'être is the promotion, monitoring and enforcement of probity and ethical standards. Can you hear me? Yes. No, you can't. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. We can hear you.
Good. You looked a bit confused there, Your Worship. Never mind. So I repeat, the promotion, monitoring and enforcement of probity and ethical standards, not only of borough members, but also members of town and parish councils. and the various ways in which the committee carries out its duties is clearly set out in Chapter 9 of Woking Borough Council's Constitution. The committee consists of 6 Woking Borough Council members, appointed on the basis of political proportionality, as well as 3 non-voting representatives from town and parish councils. In addition, we have 3 independent persons, and the committee is required to seek the view of one of the independent persons before or when a matter is being investigated. And the independent person must be a member of the public and must not be a council officer or an elected member. For the current year, 2017-18, I'm very pleased to say that the committee had only had 3 complaints to consider, and in each case, no action was required. This result is, to say the least, encouraging, considering that we have 54 members and more than 200 town and parish councillors within our jurisdiction. The committee will continue to look for improvements in all areas for which it is responsible, in the interest of credibility and maintaining good governance, and will continue to provide further training and support. We have also submitted our comments to the review of ethical standards in local government undertaken by the Committee on Standards in Public Life. And any new points on conduct, breaches of conduct, sanctions and whistleblowing that may come out of that committee's work, which will be published later in the year, will of course be included in our own procedures. So I recommend that this report is noted. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Does your secretary want to speak now? Yeah.
If it's just me, no, that's fine, thank you.
That's brief. Does any other member wish to speak? There being none shown, we have a proposer and a seconder. So as they have on page 155 to 160 in the agenda, can I see those in favour, please? Any against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Reports from members appointed to outside bodies. We have a proposer, Charlotte Porter-Taines. Charlotte, would you like to speak? And do you have a second?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lee.
Mr. Lee. I know him.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start by thanking all of the many members who have attended the great number of outside bodies that this council has representatives to in the past year. I know that our contributions have greatly been valued on these trusts, boards, forums and organisations, and have helped shape the priorities and actions of much of the important work that goes on in delivering some of these trusted services. A couple such examples of where our vital blue light organisations have benefited from our councillors' involvement have been in the police and fire authority. By our involvement in these bodies, we are able to shape the new innovations that are proposed for our borough. Councillor Richard Delinsky, in his governor role on the Royal Berkshire NHS Foundation Trust, has been part of the tender work around the exciting Proton Beam Therapy Centre, soon to be opening in the Thames Valley Science Park in Shinfield. That's welcome, in case Reading thought that it was theirs. Councillor David Slight, through the Strategic Aviation Special Interest Group, plays a key role in ensuring that we have links to Gatwick and Heathrow airports. This work is particularly important at a time when discussions continue about the third runway. Councillor Keith Baker and Councillor Kate Haynes have been active members of the Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative, and indeed I know that Keith Baker has been on that for 10 years. This has been crucial in keeping Woodley Town Centre thriving with many events and encouraging retailers to come to the town. As we start to look at how best we boost our investment in towns and villages, the TCMI will be an important voice in setting out what's needed for Woodley. The Royal Berkshire Fire and Fire Authority and our members who represent it are vital links between this council and the Fire and Rescue Service. Councillors Orty, Hellier Simons, Murphin and Ross all do important work in championing the fire brigade and issues around safety. I have also played a role in getting involved in the last year with an outside body, as one of the working borough's representatives of the Local Government Association General Assembly. The LGA provides not just an opportunity for councils across the country to meet, but share ideas and best practice. It also acts as a powerful voice for local government, lobbying to shape central government policy and working for the best outcomes for councils. We shouldn't forget the work of smaller outside bodies though, and what they're able to do to enhance our community. Organisations such as the Berkshire Maestros, attended by Councillor Baker, Finch Hampstead Baptist Church Advisory Board, attended by Councillor Weeks, Keep Mobile, attended by Councillor Alison Swaddle, and the Standing Conference on Archives, attended by Councillor Paul Williamson. As discussed earlier, as part of the Council Plan review going forward, we need to boost the involvement of our outside bodies and have a greater focus on the services that these bodies provide to our residents. We will ensure that we encourage with these organisations and take on board both their understanding of where our priorities should be, but also what role they can play in working with the Council to deliver our vision for this borough. It is important that their voice is heard, and I commend all the members of this Council who sit on the outside bodies for everything they continue to do to promote these organisations and ensure that they deliver positive outcomes for our residents in the Woking Borough. I would urge members to keep putting themselves forward to sit on outside bodies, not as glamorous as your role, Mr Mayor, but just as important. Therefore, I'd like to propose that the reports from the outside bodies be noted by this Council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. David, you're a seconder. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Pro. And Harry. Okay. Do you want to speak now, David, or do you want to hold?
I hold.
Mr Mayor, there are indeed a lot of good outside bodies, as the leader has pointed out, and a lot of interesting reports. However, unfortunately, there are 4 reports missing as far as I can tell. Age UK Berkshire, Berkshire Museum of Aviation, the Piggott Trust, and one the leader actually mentioned, the Finch Hampstead Baptist Church Advisory Board. We do not appear to have received any of those reports. So I hope the members who attend those, one of whom was named by the leader, but I won't name them again, could give in their report so we can see what they have actually been up to.
Yes, there's another speaker. Come back to Simon. Harry. Harry, I'll come back to you, Simon. Very back. Speak, Harry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I happen to be a trustee of the Citizens Advice Wokingham and the splendid work they do. I'd just like to say a few words about this particular organisation. Citizens Advice Wokingham is an independent registered charity employing 10 people part-time and 2 offices in Wokingham. They have around 95 that volunteer for them. That's an incredible number, and we're looking for more volunteers if anybody's interested in imparting their expertise for this particular fantastic organisation. Citizens Advice Wokingham provides free, confidential, impartial and independent service, problem solving,